and welcome to the CEO message from AmCham for July 2017. I just got back to Australia this week after a little vacation, but I was in Washington in June with our annual Washington Doorknock. We had a great delegation. We had, in fact, the largest delegation of any AmCham in the Asia Pacific region. It consisted of great members from companies like eBay and General Electric. And look, we focused on finding areas of opportunity as the new Trump administration rolls itself out and staffs itself up, and also with the Congress as they potentially take on once-in-a-generation tax reform. Tax was probably our leading issue. We made sure that congressmen that we met and their staffs know that AmCham is AmChams in the region are strongly supportive of an of a territorial treatment for individuals as well as corporations. This would go a long way to eliminating some of the unfairnesses that affect Americans and others in Australia and across the region. So that was issue number one. I think anyone reading the newspapers can see that health care is the priority in Washington at the moment. It was when we were there. And until health care is resolved, Congress is not going to be able to move on. But the next item on the agenda is tax reform. So let's keep our fingers crossed and maintain our advocacy on that issue. We talked a lot about trade. As you know, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was scrapped in January by President Trump on pretty much his first day in office. And so we're trying to sort of read the tea leaves as to where trade policy might go. I met with people at USTR. We heard from, in fact, the TPP negotiator, Barbara Wiesel, in our session at the United States Chamber of Commerce, and she cautioned us not to expect a resuscitation of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But what might happen, particularly as the administration focuses on NAFTA renegotiation, is that elements that are critical to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, like intellectual property protection and trade with state-owned enterprises, some of those provisions might be grafted in one way or the other onto NAFTA and then find their way into the bilateral trade deals that the president says will follow. Watch this space. I didn't come away, I would say, very optimistic about trade policy. And of course, our message to Congress and others was from here in Asia Pacific, it looks like the rest of the world is going to move on with or without the United States. So we're not pleased with the way things are developing, but we think it's important to be clear-eyed and sober. Now, that was our annual Washington Doorknock. We're now looking forward to 3 major trade missions going to the United States basically in the month of October. If you're interested in infrastructure, we have a great mission being led by Ambassador Joe Hockey, who we met with in June. We had an hour and a half with Ambassador Hockey and really enjoyed his candid insights into Washington at a very critical time in the new administration. The second trade mission that we're leading will be on defense and security. We'll go from Virginia to Washington, D.C., and end up in Mobile, Alabama. If you're in that sector, now is the time to express interest. We are, putting our delegation together, and we'd love to have you join us. And finally, for the 3rd year in a row, AmCham will be doing an innovation mission at the end of October into November. It will start in Boston and end up in Silicon Valley, and we'll have a terrific slate of companies and influential CEOs and other industry leaders who will explain why the United States is and remains the most innovative business partner for Australia in the entire world. Another huge event that's coming up before the next CEO message will be the rollout of the investment study that we and the United States Study Center have been working on for the last number of months. This is an AmCham initiative. Many of our member companies and other companies have provided the funding to look into investment in Australia by the United States and Australian investment into the United States in a way that has never been done before. It was quite surprising to realize there really wasn't a reference document that we could refer to. And I think we've provided, we will have provided when the study comes out, in August, a great framework for understanding why this investment is so important, because we'll have something like 15 case studies of major investments in both directions across the Pacific. So that is going to start on August 14th here in Sydney with the first kind of rollout event, and then we'll be going to 5 other Australian capitals, including Canberra, in the 2 weeks between the 14th and the 28th of August. So please join us for those. Look on the website for details on when and where we're going to hold these events. We'd love to have you with us. Finally, I want to go back to the theme that I really focused on in my May message, which was advocacy. We had a terrific trip up to Canberra with a number of our board members and some immigration experts to express AmCham's concerns about changes in the 457 visa, which of course has been abolished. That happened virtually overnight in April. We were able to meet with the immigration minister himself, as well as the Prime Minister's office and many other stakeholders, to kind of lay out concerns about some of the retrospective impacts in terms of access to permanent residency and even citizenship. We believe that people who were sort of in the pipeline when these changes were initiated should be grandfathered in one way or the other. We had some success because we presented to the minister a list of occupations that we thought should be retained on the list for eligibility for whatever visa succeeds the 457, and we were very pleased to see that our comments were taken into account and the list was amended accordingly. So a mixed bag. We got some success. There are other areas where we will continue our advocacy on immigration issues, just as we do on taxation and other issues that affect the investment climate here in Australia. Now, I'm not going to go through them individually, but we have a wonderful slate of upcoming events in 5 different capitals for you to look at. One of them that's of particular note is the presentation in Perth by the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, Dr. Philip Lowe, which is taking place on September 21st. We think people from all over Australia should show up in Perth for this wonderful opportunity to hear where Australian monetary policy might be headed. So take a look at that website and show up at some of our events. Look forward to seeing you. Meanwhile, I'd like to just acknowledge a very large number of new members who have joined AmCham since the last message. These include Banky Haddock Fiore Lawyers, Casson and Sons Australia, Littler Mendelsohn, Brave Training, the Fred Hollows Foundation, New Zealand Consulate General Sydney, Aspect Environmental, Lumen and Company, Naked Numbers, Investment Attraction South Australia, the New York Times, Ricky Novak and Associates, SNC Lavalin, and Optical Solutions. If you're not already a member of AmCham, please consider joining all these new members in a journey that will bring value to all of you. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you again in August.